Morning everyone. These are weird and interesting times, so we're doing things in weird and interesting ways. Of course you know my video tutorials, so it's all going to be cool. Now, I'm available for any questions across the Discord whenever you need me to do anything, but basically the tutorial for today is a frame-by-frame animation. So you basically create some initial poses and step through them little bit by little bit. I'll talk a little bit more about that as part of the intro to the session when we get on to our online class. But as a tutorial, I'm just going to dive straight into this and not stress you too much. So, right. So I've opened up a fresh Toon Boom. If you're using Adobe Animate, just remember the tools are in different locations, but the same thing can be applied, and it is just a matter of drawing individual frames, and that's what we're looking at, frame by frame animation. So I'm going to draw a character, and I've got my frame. I'm going to see if I can space that out a little bit. Yeah, I think that's good. Just so I can see the bottom of the frame. And I'm going to turn animate off. Yeah. Okay. So I am going to draw a character. And this is going to be a rough design. I might increase the size of my brush so you can see my line work. Don't know how good the resolution of this video is going to be. Okay. I've set it to 1280 by 720, but you never know. Okay. So just a basic stick figure type character, but a little more fleshed out. So you're not building a complex animated character. You're building a simple form that allows you to do some basic posing with it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is get this character to jump across the screen, but I'm going to do it in several stages, right? If I look at my page, I'm going to essentially go from this side of the page, okay, and I'm going to duplicate that drawing because I'm just going to return to that same position. So I'm going to press F5 to extend that drawing out, and of course this button down here, which is our duplicate drawing button. Okay, gives us a new drawing. But of course in that I have to move it across. Now I'm not going to move it too far. I'm going to give myself enough room for the jump. Okay, so I got 2 frames, 1, 2. I mean, I suppose you could draw that individual frame if you like, but it saves us a bit of time. From there, I'm going to actually physically drag this frame on the timeline and delete the frame in between. Of course, turning on onion skin. Okay. And you can see where things are going. Now the jump, I'm going to draw the same character, keeping the same size in the middle of that jump. So he's sort of a little bit curled up. His legs are popped up. And let's put his arms back as though he's actually see, it's a rough stick figure design, so it doesn't matter if it's a little bit messy. Extending those frames out. and I'll delete the frames in between. Okay, and going back, you can see that I'm building up to it. This time I'm going to actually refine it down a little bit. So I'm going to add a frame in between before I get to the leap, where the character is. Feet are in the same position, but he's bending down, trying to keep body parts about the same size as much as possible. So I'm curling him up. He's winding up like a spring as he's coming down. Okay, so it goes down, up, down. And on the other end, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the land animation. So feet in the same position. He's come down. There was a bit of forward momentum, so he's toppled forward. He might be reaching down to stop himself from falling on the ground. And posing like that. Okay, so down, down, over, like that. So I get a series of drawings that are beginning to show my jump. And all I have to do is continue doing that process. But I've got a few frames here that it's just a little bit over the top in terms of how I got to extend it out. I could individually grab each frame, extend it out, and then delete every second frame. But what I can do to save time is select them all in the timeline, right click, and set the exposure, not exposure, that'd be good, exposure, exposure to 2. And with those, I can go and press delete on every second frame. So notice we're not doing any of the advanced animation stuff. There's no timing. This is all the animation in the animation process, which is actually helpful for us. A lot of you have done little flip books or small animations previously. We've played a little bit around with doing some short animations frame by frame. Now we get to a character. Now adding every single frame in between. Let's see how we go. I'm going to add a frame. Now notice with my onion skin on, I can see the 2 drawings, and I'm trying to draw the drawing in between as close as possible. So true in-betweening is not exactly a straight line. Remember, we work along arcs because we're following the principle of animation arcs, but we're also thinking about volume and timing, so squash and stretch and timing at the same time. And it's a fairly even movement. I will ease that in to the beginning and the bottom of that movement later as I extend this out even further. But okay, I'm just looking at the body shapes and trying to work out how I get from that square to that square. Okay, feet don't change position, so you keep them in the same spot. If your feet are wandering all over the place, okay, you just gotta check that. Unless the character is stepping, there's no need to adjust that. Okay, so shoulder, shoulder here to shoulder here is in the middle, hand here to hand here is in the middle, and his arm here at the back is going backwards as well, so I might move it closer to the body. next one along. Okay, well, in this case, right, I'm going to do a fairly fast leap across. So I'm going to go from, let me just reduce the wing size of my onion skin so I can only see that frame in front and the frame behind. Yep. Come on. There we go. Okay, so I want to keep that toes on the same spot. He's pushing off. Okay. I'm going to give him a bit of squash and stretch. Stretch his body, because he really is pushing up. Retaining as much volume as I possibly can. Okay, if you were doing an actual animated character, you'd clean that up in the sense that head is a little bit too small. Hold on, let's clean that. You'd clean that up based on the model sheet that you're working from, so an actual animated model sheet that you reference, and copy the poses. But there's nothing wrong with doing a rough animation beforehand and then building upon it, as long as you have the same structure. So if you can work out the skeleton of a cartoon character, it's actually easy to animate that character beyond that point. Yeah. Okay, same thing. So this character is just, I'm going to have him one foot on the ground here. Leg. Okay. Still stretched. This one's going to come up, I think, and be a little bit bent. Arms backwards, but he's always looking where he's about to land. It's a little bit stretched, but you can see that. And then he comes back down. And then from here, it's a matter of standing up. And he's going to compress backwards as he gets his balance again. So, feet in the same spot. I'm going to have his head rock back this way, sort of a curve this way, as he gets himself back on balance. His knees are bent still. His arms are halfway between those poses, and there. Okay. Let's. I've got 9 frames, which is enough to really see the animation now. Let's see how it's looking. It's going to run really fast, so pre-warning. Okay, the movement's fine. Yeah. The posing is fine. I'm not too worried about that. Okay, it's all to do with timing now. What happens if I extend that out and double the frames? Okay, so I go from extend exposure, set exposure to 2. Okay, and let's see if we can watch that again. It's not too bad. Okay, I do need to smooth it out in a couple of places, but I think we're getting there. Okay. Doing my ease. Okay, so first frame in between, and now I'm leaning more towards the first frame because I'm starting off slow. So I'm manually doing the ease, whereas previously we had the computer control it. Now we're actually adjusting the motion a little bit violet and closer to the green one this time. So the red frame is always the one that was the previous drawing. The green one's always the one that we're going to. So I'm leaning more towards the green frame. There we go. So we can get fairly complex animation happening. Okay. Do I need a drawing there? I do. This time I may add a little bit of ease in again. Not really showing where he's looking at that point. I should. Okay. Okay, next one. As he gets towards the top of the jump, slowing. So his body's pulling around. His hips is squashing a little bit. His arms will be down but bent. And his feet are going from this point to this point, so somewhere in here. And this point to this point, somewhere in here. That looks a little bit awkward. I might check that later. Is this coming back down again? Slowed to the top. Closer to the top drawing because that's where the slow movement is happening across that top of that curve. And the arm, I'm gonna have follow the existing arms because they overlap there, which is a good. Okay, he's starting to put his leg down. This leg will stay up. I'm thinking as it comes around, because it's bent there, it will be like that. Something like that. Yep. And then he compresses. Feet in the same spot. So leaning more towards the green one. Leaning more towards the green one, not the red one. Keep the head about the same size. So it's rough as guts. Okay. Then we start off slow as it cushions in and tries to stand up again. Okay, and notice I'm getting faster and faster at this every time I do it. Okay, and easing towards the green one as it slows in to that standing position. I don't need that last frame because it's the same. Okay, let's have a look. See how we go. Did that smooth it out any? Oh yes. Okay, we can definitely see that. And we can also double those frames. Extend exposure set to 2. There we go. So 32 frames, so about a second and a half for the jump. Enough time to bend and land and jump over a second. Nice. Look at that. Okay, so that's basically what we're working towards. Okay, building the full animation like that. Okay, 32 drawing, it's only 16 drawings. Okay, but the challenge beyond this point is to have a go at doing your own action, whether it be another jump in a different style, or it could be, you know, throwing something, lifting an object, okay? Thinking about the weight of all the objects and how they'd all tie together, okay? It's nice and simple. Don't go over the top. You've all done stick figure animation before. I don't want you to stress about this. This is a nice simple process to ease you into the online tutorial process that we may be going through for a little while. So just ease into it. Now if you're in Toon Boom, Adobe Animate, if you're in Adobe Animate, the process is exactly the same, except you can't extend exposure. Now the difference is, okay, you just have to go through and clear keyframes, which is F7 on the keyboard. Okay, so you extend it out manually and press F7 to clear that keyframe so you can draw the drawings in between. Okay, if there's any problems with that, okay, I'm available online during all of class, so you can always message me, and the initial video process part. So cool. Now the idea is that you work on this today and you send it to me. Okay, we've also got art as well, so just be aware, and most of the work is due for that next week, so we'll get on to that. Okay, so I am going to save this file, stop the video, upload it for you all, and you should I'll see you in class.